Some of my students said I haven't changed a bit, but I'm going to put something on that proves that I am older. It is my absolute honor to introduce Miss Betty Mayberry, who retired last spring after 46 years of teaching. Betty graduated from Gallatin High School and then continued on to earn her master's degree in mathematics from MTSU. While at MTSU, she married her high school sweetheart, Eddie. She taught at several schools in Middle Tennessee, but eventually returned to her alma mater at Gallatin, where she spent her final years as a public school teacher before retiring and becoming the math department chair at Pope John Paul in 2002. As with many of us in the original group, Betty felt building a math department from the ground up in the ways she knew were best for the students was absolutely the opportunity of a lifetime. As Betty likes to say, since math is always housed in the basement, it has to be the foundation of the school. And that it was. It is because of her incredible vision and her determination that she built a top-notch, competitive program that has and still does attract the very best students and teachers. And even before Betty left, she continued her legacy and ensured that when she retired, we would continue on. She mentored and even found a house in her neighborhood for our next department chair, Miss Amanda Pepper. Betty's legacy not only lives on in our school, but across the state and the nation. Betty's been recognized for her excellence in teaching and leadership by many organizations and has contributed significantly to mathematics education on the national level. She authored the textbook, Pre-Calculus, a Graphing Approach, which has been used widely across the United States, including with our own students at JP2. As technology became a more significant component of instruction, Betty worked closely with Texas Instruments, earning awards from them as well. She helped develop and pilot new technology and was always working to find the best way, not to just use technology, but to use it for the best of her students. Her development of curriculum and leadership outside the classroom allowed our teachers and our students to be at the forefront of education. Betty also served as president of the Middle Tennessee Math Teachers Association and the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics. But most notably, Betty was presented with the Presidential Award of Excellence in Mathematics in 1993. This is the most exclusive award that can be presented to a teacher and is given to only a single math teacher from each state in a given year, and they are recognized at the White House. I'm incredibly honored to talk about Betty, as she has been my dear friend, and many times my partner in crime across the years. Betty invests heavily not only in her students, but in her colleagues as well. When I started at Gallatin, I was young and very inexperienced. Betty saw in me things I would have never believed possible. She worked with me in her reassuring, and if you know Betty, convincing way, and always encouraged me to push beyond any challenges that were in my way. She pushed me to not just lead in the classroom, but outside as well. I will always count it a true blessing that God put Betty into my life. I know that this is not just my experience, but I know it's the experience of many teachers who are sitting in this room tonight. She has this knack to just see the potential in others. And a lot of people can do that, but Betty takes us a step further, and she invests her time in truly cultivating those talents so that everyone can grow to their fullest potential. Now, Betty isn't only known for her competitive nature in the classroom, but I would be remiss to mention her leadership in the House of Peter. Tonight I'm wearing your colors, Betty, if you haven't noticed. And Amanda is too. If you walked into Betty's room, there was absolutely no mistake what house was hers. And when the school first formed, I got placed in the House of Leo, which was purple. But a few years later, it was decided that we needed to rearrange the house system a little bit so that they were grade specific instead of being mixed grades. That only lasted for a short period of time. But this meant that teachers had to be shifted. And I got lucky enough to get into the house of Peter for just a couple of years. And what was amazing is I got to watch Betty pull out her high school cheerleading experience to whip her group of students into a passion for their house that just couldn't be rivaled by any other housemaster. There was an intense battle for the house cup, and most of the time, Peter was the victor. So tonight, and others in the room, Betty, are honoring you by wearing red. Go red. I want to take a poll. How many students or their parents are here tonight who have had Betty as a teacher? Raise your hand. Look around. Look at the impact you've made. If you have, then you will know the energy and the passion and excitement that have always been staples of any classroom where Betty is taught. She truly believes that every student can be successful and learn the most challenging math concepts, even when they are incapable of believing that themselves. She ensured that success by being right beside her students, and my student was one of those two, my daughter. She was right beside them every step of the way, and it was always amazing to see how students, like my daughter, would enter her classroom really just thinking they couldn't do the math. And then they left, and they were successful, and it took them all the way through college. If you know Betty well, you'll recognize that she's a very convincing person. My Gallatin people, anyone remember being cajoled into taking a 7 a.m. calculus class before school? Or for my Pope students, did you ever attend a 7 a.m. tutorial in the morning? Betty was one of those people who could convince you to get there and get it done. The reason they followed her is because she invested in them to a level that exceeded anyone else. She loved them as much as she loves math, and they loved her right back. Even when they were overwhelmed and exhausted, she would stay with them, wipe their tears, help them regain their footing, and move on forward. Her students, many of you here, can recount endless stories of the victories you had as well, at a math competition, or even just that test you passed. Betty likes to win, and she likes for others to win as well. She taught her math classes like they were championship games, and everything was on the line. Every minute mattered, and every single student had a role to play. Her classes were always approached with energy and enthusiasm. Math isn't always easy, and if I stood up here and told you it was, I would be lying. But somehow, Betty always found a way to make it approachable and enjoyable, whether that meant singing songs in algebra or walking the unit circle. Betty, I had a student just talk to me about your unit circle just a minute ago, and he didn't even know I was talking about that. Or walking a thin line with a motion sensor, or even setting up that mathematic graveyard that you had that year. The numbers, the letters, the equations, and the graphs suddenly all had meaning and purpose. She helped her students see the beauty of mathematics and always enticed them to want to know more. Betty, I want to wish you and Eddie the very best. Eddie, thank you for sharing Betty with us. May you now enjoy the beautiful sunsets at Reelfoot and not have to worry about getting back to your calc classes. May you find the time to enjoy your friends and your church with renewed energy. I'm confident that, as always, you will find a way to serve others in your community in your most generous and loving ways. Know that we will always cherish a visit from you and will always remember fondly the beautiful foundation that you built in the basement of Pope John Paul II High School. Please join me in honoring and welcome my dear friend, Betty Mayberry.
Because those of you that have been in my classroom, I have to move my hands while I talk. But what an honor to be here tonight. I am so blessed that God has designed such a wonderful plan for my life. It began when Bobby and Sis Pate welcomed me into this world, where they taught me and my brothers to be confident, competitive, compassionate, to always set our goals high, and as my mama always said, finish what you start. Well, God's plan included the perfect mate for me. Eddie saw me coming out of Gallatin High School one day, and he went home and told his mama and his sister that he was going to marry me one day. We did marry young, and Eddie was there with me when God opened the door to my career of teaching. And I've cherished his support and his encouragement, which has gotten me through a lot of good times and bad. Well, believe it or not, but Karen Phillips was there for me when I started my teaching experience. She and her family were going to Hawaii, and she needed a substitute, I think it was 2 weeks, for her energetic group of 6th graders. Well, Mama taught me confidence, so I was confident that I could handle these 6th graders. Whew, I tell you what, I learned a lot to prepare me for my first full-time job at Knox Junior High School, which is now where Merrill Hyde Magnet School is. Well, I started out teaching 7th and 8th grade math, and it was fun for a year. But an algebra position came open, and so I go to the principal, and I said, I would like to teach algebra. I'd like to have that job. The principal looked at me and said, a woman cannot teach algebra. Well, thank goodness I had a little composure there, and then I thought about it for a minute, and I said, okay, here I am, a confident young woman, and I really didn't like to be told no. I never have been. So I asked him to let me teach during my planning period and give me all 6 algebra classes, and I would show him that a woman can teach algebra. He gave me the position, and that was the beginning of my competitive math teams. And he didn't fire me either, so. As I grew more confident and competitive, I was offered a job at Westmoreland High School. Well, the school did not have a very comprehensive mathematics program. So the principal said, could you develop one? Well, as Karen and all of us, we always said, of course we can. I'd be happy to. But in a small school, this required me teaching classes before school, after school, during my lunch break, during my planning period, and even teaching at least 2 or 3 subjects during each period during the day. It was a lot of fun, and we made a lot of success. And you know, Westmoreland finally had some winning math teams. Obviously, you've heard about me liking to win in almost anybody's conversation. So then I moved to Gallatin High School, where successful math teams was a standard. So many of my special students liked to stay home on Friday night and really had fun preparing for those competitions. And the competition, as Jennifer Dye mentioned, even escalated within our own ranks when we had both juniors and seniors competing in a calculus competition. Just so happened one of my juniors was the state champion in calculus that year. Building these math teams was a lot of hard work, both for the students and for me. But the highlight was not doing all the exciting mathematics, but the relationships and the camaraderie that we developed by working together. And especially as I began to teach at JP2, it was fun to dominate math competitions. But the most important thing was that we did work hard and we prepared to compete. And as long as we did our best, we were successful. But we did, however, keep setting our goals for success higher, which meant we had to work harder and harder. But competitions in my career were not just limited to math teams. You know, it was kind of fun winning in other areas. The magazine drive at Gallatin High School. I did like being called the magazine queen. And then we had door decorations at Riverdale High School, and I was stuck out in a portable, but we decorated that portable as a car, both inside and out. It was such a good decoration. And then it came to Penny Wars at JP2. Whoa, and Mr. Sabo really kept us going in that competition. The canned food drive. Always, we had to leave school to get our canned foods. It was a lot of fun. And then, of course, house competitions. I actually had a student call me tonight, and I have to mention because it's one of my highlights of some of the house competitions, and it was Paul Kirby. He is now a doctor, and he called to say, you know, to congratulate me. But when it came to house competitions, there wasn't anybody that was more invested in tug of war than he was. And nobody thought the red house could beat the green house that day, but we did. So being part of the best house at JP2 has been fun. And what is the best house at JP2? Competitions have been fun and have definitely caused me to question my confidence in a lot of situations. The biggest leap of faith came when God opened the door for me to be a part of the JP2 faculty. Who would have thought when I was contemplating retirement from Sumner County Schools and was convinced that God was closing the door on my teaching career? Karen Phillips calls again. I had no intention of leaving Gallatin, but spending 30 minutes with Hans and realizing his vision for the school, I knew that God had a different plan for me. So the confident young woman who wanted to teach algebra many years ago was the woman who now wanted the challenge of building a math department from scratch. It took us all working together as confident parents, colleagues, students, friends, and family to build this shining city on the hill. So here we are all now, part of the biggest competition, making JP2 the best school in the area, or the state, or the nation. We don't think small. Through my teaching journey, my focus has been primarily on building mathematics curriculum. But however, the most special times occurred when I was spending time together with colleagues and students outside the classroom. There are so many fond memories filled with compassion. Students and teachers working together on a Relay for Life team for cancer research. Students presenting a Pride program where high school students set an example for middle school students to promote drug awareness. Students offering the hospitality of their homes when I needed a place to stay for late night games. Cheerleaders keeping in touch and supporting me still to this day. Students helped me to prepare for math conference, especially using up-to-date technology. Students still singing my math songs as they grow older, even at their wedding party. Colleagues being there when I needed a shoulder to cry on or just needed a friend. Colleagues creating the best way to present lessons that especially integrated graphing calculators. But boy, did we have a lot of agreements and disagreements over that. It all turned out good, too. Colleagues loving to come to my house for a stress relief party. And a colleague always being there for me like a daughter I would have loved to have had. And finally, so many of my students who are now teachers and are continuing to influence future generations. I am so blessed that God opened the door of teaching for me. And now as the door closes, and I am finishing what I started 46 years ago, I'm confident that God has many more doors to open for Eddie and me. Thank you all for being here tonight as God's bouquet of love.